community, our local school board, though we have differences today in the newspaper, I think our local school board here in Bartow County is responsive enough that if there was a need and parents came to the school board and said, we need a charter school, I think our school board would probably give it real fair consideration and do it. I don't think we have that need. I haven't been made aware of it. But I guarantee you, pretty strongly could guarantee you, that if a group of local concerned parents in some counties in this state, some big counties with very entrenched political structures, if those parents went to that school board, they would be drummed out of the meeting. They wouldn't get a second chance. They wouldn't even get a first chance. So it's important for those folks in those communities who don't have access in their community to have a second way to get a quality education for their kids. And the state constitution requires us to provide a quality education for those children.
I understand that.
And we've got to do it across the state. I hear you. It's not a problem in Bartow County. We don't have people beating down our doors saying, make this happen for Bartow County. If anything, we've got more people saying, well, what are you doing here? We're a little concerned about this. And I think, part of my job, or anybody's job who wants to see it happen, is you got to be able to talk about it and explain it. And the last point I'll make on this before it's your turn again is on the funding issue. The funding mechanism actually says that the state cannot alter the funding formula for local schools to pay for charter schools. In other words, not only does the local school money stay local, but the formula that the state uses to send money to the local school board cannot be altered because of the presence of a charter school. So it is a red herring to say that charter schools are going to gut money from the public schools.
Richard, I think you hit on my biggest concern, and I'm going to drop it because I don't want to consume the meeting, but the concern I have, I think what you're hearing is the folks in Bartow County are fairly comfortable with our school system, and we don't feel there's a need there for a charter school. In my opinion, what this bill is going to allow the state to do is to create a charter school against the wishes of the local community, which in turn, we can spend it how we want to, is going to impact the funding, and it's going to impact our taxes. And that's the biggest concern, is we're giving up local control, and the state has that option to come in and create that charter school.
Well, and to follow on, the state has that power. The Supreme Court of this state stepped outside of the bounds of its authority and said that the executive and legislative branches don't have that power. Now, the Supreme Court got it wrong in that 4-3 decision. And that's part of why we're doing this, is to remind them they have a limited role. We don't tolerate activist judicial branches in the state of Georgia. So there is another reason for doing this, but I appreciate the concern. Lil, I'm sorry. Back to you.
Well, my concern is the fact that, for concerned parents that are really involved in their kids' lives, if we all got, the rumor mill, and it's like, oh, if our kid goes to a charter school, they're going to get the job offers first. So do you not think that those of us that are really involved in our kids' lives and we care about their future, do you not think that I would pull my kid out of a public school and put them in the charter school? And so what does that leave in the public schools?
Well, and the question then is, why do parents want to put kids in charter schools?
Yeah.
Why do they want to do that?
Well, and I understand what they're saying about, they're not getting the education in the public schools that they need. Well, then, I'm just saying, if our public schools are so bad, then I think somebody needs to go back to round one and do something about the public schools first, instead of generating another whole school system, which will be charter schools.
And we've done that to an extent. This is another reason we needed to deal with this, because under the Supreme Court's decision, the executive and legislative branches have no authority to do anything in setting policy or fixing or controlling local school board problems. There's another law in the state that says that essentially if a school board fails to do what it's supposed to do, the governor can recall the members of the school board and appoint replacement members. And that's happened in this state and in Metro County. But under the Supreme Court's ruling, we can't even do that. So again, there are a couple of different issues here we're dealing with, but I think, to me, as an attorney, the overarching issue was Supreme Court, you're out of bounds. You can't do this because there are a lot of other issues that would be affected, including being able to go back down, drill down from the state level to fix that local school board problem.
I'm just going to say this, and I'll stop harping on it. But if everybody is allowed to send their child to whatever school they want to send it to, and the dollars follow that student, rest assured that people that are involved in their kids' lives, they're going to drive ever how far it is to get that kid in that school. And I'm telling you, when you do that, what you leave behind is going to be a catastrophe.
Well, most of these charter schools are on lotteries right now. I mean, it's basically there's so many parents applying for that. It's not means tested. It's just basically just like running the lottery. They have ping pong balls with numbers and say, okay, this is the way it's an open selection process.
So if you fund charter schools, then how will you fund the charter schools? How will the state fund the charter schools if the state gets involved with it?
It'd have to be a separate appropriation through the general fund. It couldn't be out of QBE funding or quality basic education funding.
Our state would be funding 2 school systems.
It would mean that for those systems that are approved by the state approval system, which I don't know how many there are currently, 10 or 12. I mean, they're not a lot. There are a few.
A lot of what?
A lot of charter schools that are state chartered schools.
If this does go through, there's going to be a lot of charter schools that come up.
Not necessarily. No more than there are now, because this changes nothing than the way it's happening now. And there's no charter schools in Bartow County.
Yeah.
I mean, this is only just setting it back to the way things are today and have been for the last 10 years. So I don't see it's going to be a significant change.
And I think you have a valid concern. And to that point, we have we have local charter schools in this state, and the local charters have become so popular that there is a state funding $100 per student that goes into that, but the programs have become so successful and so popular that the number of local charters that are being approved outran the funding. And so what we've had to do is we've had to say, okay, we can't fund that anymore. And I think that's what happened. Ultimately, the state has to look at it as we go, and if we get to that point where everybody's applying and we can't fund them, we can't fund them. Barry, do you want to take the next one?
Sure.
I want to kind of continue on with what she's saying, because I think that the question she's trying to ask, the difference between a charter school and a public school. In a charter school, the parents and the teachers have more control over what the child is taught. In order to fix the public schools, the problem they have is the heavy load of red tape. My kid's been with Mr. Mulkey. This is, I think, their 4th year, Mr. Mulkey?
And I apologize for that.
He's been doing a wonderful job with the world on his shoulders in this red tape. Imagine if all this red tape was eliminated.
Absolutely.
Everybody would be saying, I want to go to Mr. Mulkey's charter school, okay? It's the red tape.
Absolutely.
That's the problem. And I am a certified teacher in the state. I have not worked in Bartow County. But here's what the red tape is causing. I'm going to use myself as an example. I won't tell you what school system I work for. But last year, I had an administrator tell me, and I'm quoting, "There is no doubt you are the most rigorous teacher we have. I teach Spanish, that's college prep. It needs to be rigorous, right? You have never got anything less than excellent on any observation. It's obvious you're an excellent teacher. However, we just want you to push them through so we can graduate them, because we have to meet our numbers for No Child Left Behind." And I know John Barger's gotten us out of that. Thank you, John Barger, and thank you, God. But there's still so much more that's burdening our educators down. And I think that's what she's trying to say. Why can't we get rid of this red tape so that in our local community, the educators and the parents do have more control, just like they do in a charter school? And I know there are certain things that Mr. Mulkey would love to do in our high school, but his hands are tied by regulations. And it would benefit our children. And I think is that where you're trying to get? Can't we just get rid of this red tape?
As long as we're accepting federal funding, and I believe, what percentage of our
70% of the regulations is federal regulation. which only support about 5 to 7% of our funding.
That's why